I'm very excited to talk to you today. These episodes went by so quick. I didn't realize how many I kept on pressing to the next episode, to the next episode, to the next episode, because I needed to know what was happening. The growth of each character, but also I love chess. I mean, what was your first initial emotion about chess yourself? Did you just have any real connection to it prior to this, or was it just something that seemed very interesting, but it was also other people's worlds at the time?
Maybe a bit of both, really. I mean, I grew up as a child playing drafts, which is nowhere near as complicated, I know, but it has the same board. And so my mum then went out and bought me some chess pieces that fit on my drafts board. And I did get into it, and I learned how to play, and I found it interesting. But at that age, anyway, it was kind of above me. I think it was a bit too complicated. But I did always think it was fascinating, and I played when I was a kid. I played another chess player in a little like two-part drama thing in France. Um, so I kind of got into the world of chess then when I was very young, and then I came back to this, and I worked with Scott, the director, on a thing called Godless, which is another Netflix show. And he got in touch with me, and he had this really cool, mad idea to just kind of absorb ourselves into the world of chess and try and tell this story, really. So I went out and I bought myself another chess set because I'd given that one away by that time. And I kind of reacquainted myself with chess and just got used to moving pieces around, really. And because I knew I didn't have to be a amazing chess player. I just needed to look like I knew what I was doing, really. And so we had some great people from the chess world come in and teach us how to just kind of play with confidence, or to maybe psych someone out with your confidence, or how to take pieces, how to move pieces across the board, whether you slide it or whether you pick it up and place it. Um, just kind of getting a rhythm and a feel for chess. And the more we did that, and the more I hung around with these really quite amazing people who are fantastic in the world of chess, the more I realized how much of an amazing world it is.
Well, in the you were talking about the speed and trying to find your own specific rhythm. Well, your character Benny, I think, has his own specific rhythm by far. I mean, just the look alone. This guy who lives in a big city, which you wouldn't expect, who has kind of a countryish look at times too, a knife on his belt kind of
Mm.
feel, but is also a cerebral chess person. What was it that you first saw in the character that you really wanted to kind of exploit or run after?
Well, I think Scott wanted me. Well, the thing I did with him before, I was playing a cowboy, and so I think he kind of just saw me as that, and he wanted to bring back the facial hair, he wanted to bring back the hat, and ended up in a long coat, and I had as opposed to having guns on my hip, I had a knife. So we were kind of going with a bit of a cowboy cross with well, a chess champion cross with a pirate of some kind. I don't really know. It's a mad look, but I mean, I saw it as Benny kind of slightly tickling his ego, certainly. But I think he likes to walk into a room and for everyone to turn around and look at him. And I think he uses that demeanor as probably a tactic to unsettle his opponent as well. I mean, nobody else looks like that. He's very much the oddball, and I think he
Yeah.
enjoys and he almost gets off on being that oddball.
Well, and he does definitely walk in wanting to command the room, but I don't necessarily know if it's something for his own confidence or if it's something to shake others, because that's something that,
Yeah, I
that,
think it's
that
a bit of both. I think it's both, definitely.
and I think it's interesting too how not only he commands a room, but he always talks like he's the teacher in every room as well too. So, what did they put you through in the paces in regards to chess to make you feel that you could create those moments and say those words with confidence?
Well, like I said, I mean, we just worked on familiarizing ourselves with the board and with the pieces, and then also with the clocks and with scribbling down scores as well, and trying to get that rhythm right too. So sometimes we'll take a couple of moves before we scribble down, because we realized everyone was kind of doing too much, and you could get distracted by a clock or scribbles, whereas actually the interesting thing is the pieces moving around the board and what that means. And when to take moments and rest and look at the other person, or when to psych them out. So it wasn't so much about kind of learning the games as such, although all the games were laid out, and most of the games are based on famous games between famous players across all years. So if you've got a keen eye, you should be able to recognize certain games.
Well, I wish I had that keen eye too, because I think chess is one of those things that when you see someone do it right, you wish you were good enough, or even you question your own intelligence enough to do it as well. I mean, does that kind of come up too when you see some of these people who are playing it in their heads and they're calling out, a
Mm.
couple games or playing multiple games at the same time?
Yeah, I know. There is one scene in the show actually where Beth and I we're in the car and we're driving and we are playing a game in our heads, and those were very hard lines to learn because it's basically it's not a line. It's a line of code really. It's calling out a piece and then a number and a square, and they have to be perfect. So that was a very hard thing to learn. But like I said, we had some amazing people that helped teach us, and watching them demonstrate a game played through, for example, was fascinating, because they would always get kind of carried away and end up going too far, and they'd have to pull them back and go, no, 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 we're not going that far, we're not going that far. And then they'd reverse and just turn it all, and they'd start playing backwards. Just go, God, it takes a certain mindset to be at that level. And all of them, they had this kind of this like extra thing behind their eyes that you could just go, well, there's something very special about you. You're supremely talented at something.
For sure, and I think that's that comes through in this. I know you're mentioning Beth, so let's talk about the Queen. I think Anya did an amazing job. I think she went through so much. I guess from your perspective, shooting this, did you see all the growth she did? Not only as an actor, of course, but her character grows so many different ways in this as well too, because we cover, it seems it could be decades to us in how much she grows and changes constantly, but it's not that long really in this show.
No, no. I remember reading the script. Some of my favorite scenes are actually the really, really early scenes with young Beth in the orphanage, and I just think that really sets up, who this main character is, where she comes from, and why you should care about her, and how she kind of is left with nothing, and then strives to, and well, falls into discovering chess and realizing she's really good at it, and then pushing herself to expand upon that, and to try and reach greatness, and everyone she meets kind of comes in and just tries to aid her really. There isn't a baddie in this show. The baddie is the little person that sits on her shoulder and whispers terrible things in her mind, and um, messes up her own life for herself. Everyone around her is actually trying to look out for her, which I loved when I read the script, and when I saw Anya um, in different parts of her progression through her character, I was very impressed, especially when I watched it, and you can see how she's kind of she walks sloppily at the beginning, in the earlier scenes that I'm not part of, where she hasn't met me yet, um, versus all the way at the end where she's with the Soviets, and she's got a very different demeanor, stands differently, holds herself differently. So even her facial structure seems to change somehow. I thought she did a fantastic job. I thought she really really carries it.
I think so too. And speaking of, Soviets and things like that, what did they teach you about what chess is to the Soviet nation at that time? Did they kind of give you some history lessons on how important it was? We have football and things like that, but to them that is their football, their baseball, their basketball.
Yeah, yes, no, I know. They were talking quite a bit about it, and the Chinese as well now catching up hugely at the moment, apparently. And some of the guys that were teaching that had students going off and playing in competitions at the time when we were filming, and they'd get texts and just have to see how they're doing. So there was an Anya like story going on set anyway, which is quite cool. Um, but in terms of the Soviets, I mean, I kind of knew that a little bit anyway. But it's more about their approach. They just kind of approach things very, very differently. I even have a line in the show that says that the Russians they play as a team, they play together, which makes them far more strong, and they're able to analyze gameplays and work together so that each other can move forward, whereas the Americans kind of tackle it on their own, which I
Right.
quite like. I quite liked that line. I thought it was quite interesting, and
Well,
especially everything that was going on at the time with America and the Soviets, the Cold War, and tensions were so high, and yet you could play a game of chess, which is just two people sat opposite a board going at each other. And I think back in the 60s, that probably meant an awful lot more to governments and officials, just these two people sitting down battling it out because the countries can't.
right. Well, and I think that's great thing about Benny too is that while he does talk about the singular nature of America and Americans and how we deal with stuff, I feel like he is also hiding a little bit of who he is and who who his true self is too throughout. So we kind of get to expand that throughout there too and find out he's a different person than we first expect. He's not just a cocky cowboy, he's more than that. And I think that I really enjoyed that too. So I hope you enjoyed the expansion of the character too, not only just how he relates to Beth's world, but also how he kind of consumes his own and how he lives his own.
Yeah, no, he's kind of like Beth in some way. I think that's what their attraction is to each other, actually, initially, anyway, is that they're both oddballs and they both stand out. And they both got. I mean, it doesn't dive into Benny's past at all, but I think he's definitely covering up and masking something that probably is a lot more deep rooted that he doesn't want to show off at all. He wants to maintain the illusion of his talent and success. But I think deep down he's probably got a different but somehow similar story to Beth in that he's kind of come out of nowhere and discovered chess that he's very good at and just kind of gone full out with that.
Very cool. I think it's I guess I just say I'm a huge fan of when it comes to chess and using it as an allegory for something or metaphor for something. I think that it has so many standpoints that it could tell a story on its own. And some of my favorite films actually revolve around chess and how that kind of relates to life in some way too. Did you take any life lessons from the game of chess yourself by chance? Al- al-
Good
Always
question.
hide your queen, never be the pawn. I mean, that's the thing. There's so many out there. It could be any of those
Don't get
things.
too cocky. I mean, don't get too cocky. Don't think you've won it. Someone could just kind of come around and just take down your queen and the game's all over.
Right.
Seen lots of games actually on YouTube where people get very cocky and don't realize that actually they've fallen into a trap. So
Well,
yeah, don't play too fast and don't get too cocky, I guess.
the last thing I want to ask is, how would you explain this to people who, when they think about a story about chess, they feel like it's slower and it's not something that's, as enthralling as you might think. I mean, how would you explain how this movie and chess itself has its own speed and it have as a way to grip you?
Well, I mean, I think the show runs at a really nice speed actually. It's not too slow, but it's certainly not fast either. It kind of trundles along at a really nice pace that chess does as well. I mean, and once you kind of get into, and you don't need to know that much about it, but there's something just naturally quite enthralling about watching these beautiful pieces. And it's a game that has been played for hundreds of years. It's an ancient game. Um, and it's yeah, I think the show kind of tracks the speed of a chess game really. There's moments where there's lulls, and then there's moments where it's hugely exciting, and there's moments where you don't know what's going on, or kind of who you're even really rooting for. Um, yeah, I see the similarities between the actual show and a game of chess quite strongly.
All right. Well, before we close this, I have to ask, when do you start working on the mouse guard? Do you know? When you start?
Oh, mouse guard. I mean that. I don't know what happened. That all got kind of messed up when Disney
COVID
bought
happened.
Fox, and
Oh, so that's not going to be a
so
thing anymore.
and no, it got cancelled. I mean, I've spoken to Wes, who's the director. He did
Yeah.
Maze Runner, and I was really excited to see what that guy does after Maze Runner. And then he said, "Oh, you'd like to be part of it." And so I was really looking forward to it. And I found out we got cancelled a day before I flew out, the night
Ah,
before I flew out. So I mean, I spoke to Wes, and he's still. I mean, he put so much work into it, so much artistic work, and some of the sizzle reel I saw was phenomenal.
Did they show you
Um,
were you a character you were going to be? Did they show you kind of
yeah, yeah, they showed the whole world. I mean, what they had already. Someone had put an awful lot of work into it, like a lot of work. It's terrible, really, that it's all gone.
well, I mean, you're
But
gonna
I
have
mean, I
Andy
know it's in
Serkis is part
Wes's.
of it, so it's going to be amazing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know. We were starting to get together a really good cast. It was going to be quite interesting. And I'm not a huge fan of motion capture, but I think done in the right way, it can be really effective. And I think playing in that small miniature world of mice, it would be perfect for that. But I don't know. We'll see. Last time I spoke to Wes, he was like, it's on the back burner at the moment, but it's still a passion project that I want to get off the ground.
Well, I would say right now, in this world right now of content driven services, Netflix, there's never a bad idea if we can do it right. I feel so. There's, if we
Absolutely.
can get this out there and do it correctly, I feel like the fans will follow it. So I want to thank you very much. This was such a pleasure when it came to watching this. I
Oh,
enjoyed,
thank you. I'm
uh,
so glad.
yeah, I enjoyed each character. I enjoyed. Um, Beth and everything she took from the people around her, whether it was good or bad, and how it kind of reflected her. But at the end, it was just the little girl wanting to play chess at the same time, who was just trying to find happiness as well. And then I think that
Mm.
there's a lot of growth in that throughout too, and then letting go of the past and a lot of lessons. But I really did enjoy it, and like I said, when it comes to chess and using that as a metaphor, I'm on board 100%.
No, it works really well as a metaphor, I think. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very cool. I'm
for,
very happy with it.
for sure.
I'm
And
glad
then
you enjoyed it, man. Glad
yeah,
you enjoyed it.
100%. And then Benny seemed like a lot of fun too. I was like I have some questions that I can't talk about now because I don't want to give anything away. But there's definitely some things about him that it made me question, like what was the backstory on this too. So maybe we'll talk
Mm.
again in the future and we'll kind of look back at this and ask those questions. So,
All right.
but
Yeah, sounds good.
until then, such a fun show, and I want everyone to watch this limited series and just kind of enjoy it for what it is. The Queen's Gambit, of course, the 23rd on Netflix. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much.